Hello guys, David Vose here again. Well, I hope you guys don't hear the wind in the background. I'm actually in the truck, so maybe there won't be a lot of wind. But it's a beautiful day. Very few little clouds in the sky, but that wind kind of indicates there might be a few clouds coming in, moving in. Maybe you'll have some rain later. But, well, I hope you're having a wonderful day. We're still having summer here. It's beautiful. It didn't even really get that cold. It hasn't got down to freezing or anything yet. Flowers are still blooming. The pluppies are all fat and sassy and lying around now in the sun. And I have sat down because I felt another revelation coming on, which happens every day. But my thoughts this morning, especially as I was talking to a friend, kind of brought me to a kind of a deeper revelation. I mean, a couple of revelations this morning. One of which is just fully and completely profound. Not sure I should even include that in this because I probably should do a whole video on it. And I think I will. It has to do with the flat earth. And we're going to explain something. I won't go into it here, but I'll just say that what the Lord has shown me about the shape of the world, I don't care about the earth. I care about the earth dearly, but the earth isn't some planet drifting aimlessly in a chaotic universe, which is kind of what they tell us. Meteorites are slamming into each other and, it's dangerous. I've never seen a meteorite. I've seen little white things going through the sky. I don't know what that is, but could be meteorites. I'm not saying it ain't. But I also believe that it's magnetism, and in a magnetic field, nothing bumps into each other because everything has a certain protection or a force field around it. And I'm convinced that the craters on the moon are not from asteroids or meteorites. We don't see them. We don't see any atomic explosions on the moon. In all of the hundreds of years we've been monitoring, we've never seen it. But what we do know, just like on the Earth, at Crater Lake and different places around the world, even the Gulf of Mexico may be a crater, but it's not a crater. It's a volcanic crater. Because the Earth, when it was hot, when it was, millions of years ago, is a different evolutionary stage. It was probably hotter. There was a lot more volcanic activity. Or perhaps it's just, for centuries, we don't even know how old the Earth is. They're saying now it may be more than 4 billion, like 10, 15 billion. Or 13.5 or something. But, who knows? I don't care what they say because I don't believe, half of what they really say. Half of what they say, they don't preface with, we've learned, or this is truth, but they preface it with, this is a theory, or the latest opinion, or whatever. So you certainly wouldn't have to believe any of it anyway. And the other half is at least 9/10 lies, because they know that they didn't go to the moon. And if they did, they would know a whole lot more about this universe than what they're letting on. As we've said, sounds like I'm about ready to go into some of this, but I'm just going to give you a brief little teaser, and then we'll talk about this in another video, because I got some other stuff I want to talk about today. But like I've said, each of these globes have a north and south pole. We can see it. We can understand that the Earth is spinning, and we can see it with geometry and everything, and it's very clear. We can measure distances with planes and boats, and if you think there are no planes, you're just not thinking. If you think there are no satellites in the air, I'm sorry, there is. I've seen them. And so there is some sort of technology out there, but a lot of it beyond a certain point is lies to keep us in, like, okay, yes, we have bullets, we have weapons. I know that's a fact. I actually have shot a gun. I know they're real. All right, gunpowder, I know there's reality. But, and you could make a rocket with gunpowder, right? Just like, and you just like call a firecracker. But do they have rockets that go to the moon? Well, probably not. So there is some truth and there's some lie. And they have this, well, I was going to say, so we have rockets, but does that mean that there are such thing as nuclear, that if one of these bombs goes off, the entire area for hundreds of miles around is unlivable for 1,000 years? I don't believe that. If that were true, then Chernobyl, Hiroshima, and different places would be unlivable, and they're not. And I've seen people who have been around nuclear waste plants and stuff that have said they work there and it's not toxic. They're lying. It's just a way to keep us afraid, and they make a little rocket man with a red, white, and blue flag so that those who know realize this is just our little puppet guy. And he goes over there and says, I'll shoot a missile up if you don't be good, and so we're, let's all be good, we're scared of the Russians. And this is just a way to keep us in control, get more taxes. Anyway, I'm going off into some other thing now, but the point is there are lies, deep, deep lies that they know are lies, that only the top level even knows is a lie. Yeah, actually, there's only a very small number of people has any knowledge, and we don't know how much they know. We know that the highest organization or group that knows everything, that knows everything that can be known or is allowed to be known, is this royal blood family. Even they don't know until they're initiated into they get older, like the king himself might know something. I don't know. I don't even know how much he knows. A lot of these guys are just possessed of Satan, and they're just doing the will of Satan. They don't even really know. And one of the reasons they use the bloodline rather than all of us is because that bloodline has made a covenant. And this is going to fit in actually with what I'm about to tell you about this covenant. That I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow your mind. I don't think half of you will believe me. But evil doesn't ever have to happen to you. Death doesn't have to occur in anyone's life. Misfortune, negative things, nothing bad can possibly ever happen. I'm reminded of Psalms chapter 91 that says, the Lord shall commission his angels over you and charge them that they will guard you in all your ways. Now, if you really think about that, you say, well, I don't believe in the Bible, Dave. That's just a poem. Well, I do. Because not only because I read the poem, but I found out that the poem is ancient, written by a priesthood that goes back before the flood. And I did some investigation and found out that these priests had communication with a higher plane. And I found out that there is these little mysteries that they wrote down, and they're trying to hide it from you, but you can actually go there and you can find this information out on your own. You don't have to read the book. The book is just saying, hey, it's over here. There's water behind the rock. Okay. Well, I'm so thirsty, I'm about to die. I'm not even going to go look. No, I think I would, maybe not know for sure if there's water behind the rock, but I'm going to go look. And I went and looked, and I'm just giving you my testimony. It's real. But most of the people in the world don't know anything about this information. And they've been told to keep it hush hush. It's a mafia that runs the world. And the mafia are little grunts with their little pistolonis, Hey, stick 'em up, senor. That's it. They don't know what they're doing. They're given a little apartment, a little monthly stipend, booze, women, everything they want. They get away with it, crime, whatever, because they can be perverts or what, and they don't mind because they don't really believe there's anything real about the universe, or there's no such thing as morals or right or wrong. They're just animals. They don't know. They're drunk out of their mind. They're on some hallucinatory chemical that's killing their bodies, not an herb, and is killing them and destroying their brain cells. They really don't know where they're at or who they're, raping and pillaging that week. But above them, there are those who possibly go through, like in some places in the world, there are these supposed priesthoods, but they're not priests to angels. They're priests to demons. And the demons are giving them very limited knowledge. A lot of the demons are just lying to them because Yahweh sends out his lying spirits, and they're getting favors and pleasures and power. They're selling their soul for this for a while. And they have to know what they're doing. They're making an agreement, a covenant. And so the peasants, thank goodness you're a peasant, because if you're a peasant and you're poor and you're wandering around, with no money and no place to live and nowhere to lay your head, that must mean that you are a very good person, because you are not bound to that which binds you to this world, which is the agreement with hell, that you've resisted their will. You have free will. You're like the nature of the animal, which is, I'm free and you can't tame me. We're wild, right? We're not domesticated under the law. Now, that may seem like we're the bad guys, but you see, the beast is the part of us that we live in our conscious mind. And we have a spiritual mind that controls this beast. And when you have access to that, then this beast, like Jesus said, be as wise as serpents, but as innocent as doves. We need to access our serpent. The dove is the mother. She was represented as a dove because the dove means the spirit, because it has wings and it's usually white, pure, a pure angelic being, right? We all have one. But the serpent is usually dark and ugly and slithers on the ground, base. That's the lower elemental. We all live in a body. We all have the physical. So we have that, and we have the dove too. And they work together. And there's nothing wrong with the serpent. The serpent was cursed, but only because the serpent didn't yet die to itself and be reborn to its higher self and get the wings back. So Jesus died in the body and raised up that body, the same body that he died with. He raised it up, the physical elemental. He raised it up and gave it wings. So the beast is what we all are. Some people are just so enmeshed in the beast, and they're hearing the voice of the dragon, which controls the beast. The dragon is the leader, the lord of the fallen angels, and it is lies and demons and destruction. But for those of us, though, who have, like Jesus, rode into Jerusalem, the city of light, on that brute beast, we've got a bit in its mouth, we've controlled it, we've overcome the world. We come in and they lay out a red carpet and palm branches and say, Hosanna, Hosanna, right? Blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord. I mean, we are coming to reign. They present us with a golden crown. Why? Because we have conquered the lower forces and ignited the crown chakra. That's why you get a crown. It's not a gold crown. We don't care a little tiddly bit about gold. We don't care about gold. Gold is something we wear. We have lots of it. We're adorned with gold, but we're not gold. Our life is precious. We care about our bodies, but we know that our bodies are just clothing. We can wash the clothing. We can sew the clothing. We can get new clothing. We can go naked. We can do, we're not worshiping the material. We use the material. We take that beast and we love the nature that's still of the base nature, the lower elemental spirits, the little elves that obey our commands. There's nothing wrong with the spirits, the elementals. They will obey you. The problem is this army of elemental spirits, the material, physical world, must have a leader, and that is the Christ in you. And you must command them. And when you have that power to command the waters by commanding the wind, the mind, and then the elemental forces come to rest. When they're not jostling up and down with every wind of doctrine, every wind of mind, thought, every one here and there, contradictory, fear, anxiety, grief. It's all about not knowing. That's what fear is. And ignorance. If we lose the ignorance, we have access to the river of life. The thought processes is coming from the above. And the river of life gives life to all the living creatures. And the beast nature turns into a docile. The lamb will lie down with the wolf, and the lion shall eat straw. And the little serpent, or the big serpent, She'll do no harm. And the little child will play in the hole of the cobra. Well, the little child is your true self, not the outer body, not the serpent. The serpent's not going to harm you. The beast won't harm you. Now, the elite aren't like that little child. They don't have control of this world, but they know something about control. They know about power. They know that they can get power from the lower demons. So they're run by the lower demons. So they don't know very much. They only lust very much. And they have this power. And so they're kind of blind. And now I've been, like I said, I was Jehovah's Witness for 18 years till they disfellowshipped me when I was 18. And I watched how they work. We have these 3 conventions every year. We have a society. We communicate with each other through language. So if you were to walk up to Jehovah's Witness right now and say, I'm waiting for the new system of things. And I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses from another town, and I've just come to visit. They would say, new system of things? Are you okay, brother? I don't think you're one of us, because you should have known that 10 years ago, we changed that to the New World Order, right? You got to say the right lingo. Oh, and you didn't even once say you were in the truth. You said you had knowledge. We don't use that word. Or, hey, you said something about a church. We don't use the word church. We use the word kingdom hall. So they have their own lingo. And if you don't know that lingo, you're not one of them. You could never pass yourself off as a Jehovah's Witness and go into their kingdom hall and say, oh, yeah. Now, if you were disfellowshipped, I guess you could go pretend. If you had just been recently disfellowshipped and you knew all the lingo and kept up with the books, then you could go pretend to be in another congregation and change your name. I don't know. They never asked for my social security number as far as I could remember. So you might be able to get away with something like that. But if you really were just trying to pass yourself off as a Jehovah's Witness and you weren't, you couldn't. They're a secret society. And if they find out that you're trying to infiltrate their organization, because they've already been infiltrated, right? The sincere brothers were infiltrated by Satan a long time ago. And like a mafia, they've taken it over. And they don't want anybody coming in and teaching the people anything. So you have to be strict and only go by the book. And you're not allowed to speak your own mind or believe anything. So if you went in there with a free spirit, they'd find out right away, oh, he's got the spirit of the world in him, right? And you wouldn't get very far, very long. You'd have to completely mentally accept all of their conditions. And when you do that, you're signing an agreement. Even if they didn't give you a piece of paper. Actually, they do give you a piece of paper. When I was baptized, and I didn't know this, 6 months before they disfellowshipped me, they only baptized me so they could disfellowship me. Because if you're just a kid and you're only 18 and you've never been a baptized member, they can't kick you out. What are they going to do? Tell all the congregation, oh yeah, this kid, don't talk to him. Why? Well, we're disfellowshipping him. How? He never was baptized. He's just like somebody in the world that you go and preach to, and he hasn't accepted Christ yet. So technically, you can't say that the person's apostate until they've signed the document. So they have this meeting with you, and they say, okay, you agree to this and that, and you're going to be a witness, and you're going to do this, and it's like an oath. A lot of witnesses don't realize they're signing the oath. You're having this meeting, you think, well, what does this have to do with Christ, right? I said I love the Lord, let's get baptized. No, you can't just get baptized. You got to agree. You got to sign the document that that's why they did that with me. They wanted me to sign my loyalty. If I would have been loyal, they offered me the prettiest girl in the region. They offered me any job I wanted with big companies. I would have had my life set for me. And the sky's the limit. If you're really, really good, put your little suit and tie on, join the ministry school, learn to give talks, donate your time helping the brethren, meaning spying on people, making sure they all toe the line so they don't go into the world, so they're all happy so they can get up and go to work next day and work as slaves for the system. Everybody at Jehovah's Witnesses are blind. They don't know what they're doing. So when they disfellowship you, they're not doing evil because they don't know what evil is. They've lost contact with their self. They're just a number. And so, you look at people and say, how could they be like this? How could they be? They're doing wrong. I don't know how they could ever do that. Well, it's a slow process. They're steeped in the hot the warm water, and they turn it up and it becomes hot, and then they're scalded to death. And eventually they end up mentally delusioned, dying. They end up falling and committing suicide, or either that, if they don't want to lose their families or whatever, they stay in a crisis of conscience. They don't speak to anyone. They just do what they're told, and they don't know what else to do. But these guys will go to 3 meetings, conventions, convocations, 3 times a year, just like the Judeans in the Torah. It's very important when you're under law, when you're in a cult, when you're in a mind control group, that you have regular programming. Just like they're trying to do with the entire world with the television. But back in the days, the temples had these dramas. This is why you come down to Francis Bacon and Shakespeare, and they did these dramas, and these university would have theater, and they would have plays. You know, acting and plays came from the elite schools, the fraternities, the societies. The elite went to the colleges. They were the colleges of the pontiffs, the priests, you know? And now it's turned to where, like, everybody wants to be a member of the cult. Well, they added many more degrees. Now there's 33 degrees. There used to be 3. Well, these other degrees are just apprentices. They don't tell you anything. If you're not a 33-degree Mormon, or I should say Mormon, yeah, Mormon, or Mason, you don't know anything. Okay? And the 33-degree Mormon and Mason and Jehovah's Witnesses probably don't know much either. Now, somewhere in the world, at that point, at that level, you know that the world is you're kind of an atheist. You don't really believe in the spirit and the divine. You just think the world, that the people are just like animals. So not that you know the truth. You know a part of the truth. You know that we are animalistic. You know that the world is like sheep and they follow. You know that you can manipulate them. However, a good person says, oh, they're like sheep. They need to be taught and led to fountains of eternal waters, like Jesus, the good shepherd. But they find out the truth, and that's as far as they go in their greed and their power. They want to rule and control and keep that knowledge from you. So they put you in a pen and they feed you genetically modified grains that make you sick and die early, because they only need you to be healthy for a few years to be a slave, and they'll let you breed, and then they get rid of you. They don't want you around too long because you might learn and start telling people stuff. If you had 90-year-old wise people running around giving their wisdom and telling the children that, don't do it, I was there and it was a scam, then people would wake up. So you gotta be in a stupor. Alcohol, they like pot now because it works at the GABA centers and makes you tired, keeps your mind in kind of you're high and you're happy, but you're kind of sleepy too if you do it too much. They just keep throwing everything at us. They don't give us any information or wisdom, so we get depressed. And even if you are on pot, if you're depressed, you're not going to be able to find your way out because you don't have the information. They're controlling your life. So all Jehovah's Witnesses are controlled this way, and the entire world. And the reason I'm telling you this is because the elite are in a organization like Jehovah's Witnesses. This royal blood is the royal blood because they have a centuries ancient contract. They have a covenant that they have made with this deity, Yahweh, and they're bound. The demons are ancestral. They are born in the same family. They're the same evil people, born and reborn in the same family. And they're bound as soon as they're born. They're bound by the blood. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't break free, but it's like this. If you are thrown into a pit, but you got one hand on a root that's coming out of the side of the mountain, and you have enough strength at that point, you could pull yourself out from, by just hanging on to the root that's coming out of the side of the well or the pit you're in. and you can make your way out. Well, you have enough strength right then. But if you don't take advantage of that moment when you're not all the way down at the bottom of the pit and you're halfway out and you got a hold of a root or a rope or somebody's, heel or something, if you don't take advantage of it, you might fall down deeper into the pit. Now, at that level, you might fall on a little ledge and there still might be hope because you can holler up at the top and say, hey, I'm down here. Maybe somebody will come and get you. There's still a chance you can get out. At some point, you keep falling deeper and deeper into the hole, you're going to be down so far that no one can hear you. And you say, yeah, but the angels can hear you. Yes, they have charge over you and they guide your feet. However, you never made a covenant with them. You made a choice before you were even in the pit, when you were up above. You made a choice to follow the demons, and it was because the demons weren't giving you the light in your pathway that you stumbled on that rock and fell into the hole. So yes, you fell in the hole, but it's not like Jehovah's Witnesses say, time and unforeseen occurrences that will befall us all. Well, it says that, but that doesn't mean coincidences and random things. It means time. Yes, that's something that we don't know, the future, right? Doesn't mean it isn't known. Doesn't mean it's not a reason for it. Doesn't mean that it's not predictable or caused by you. You can predict what you're going to have because the future is just a manifestation of what you believe. So time and unforeseen occurrences befall us all only because we have not yet become conscious and receive that living stream of flow, that communication, the living waters from our innermost being. But we have received the devil. We have not received the light of the love of the truth that we might be saved, but we are deceived and we have this strong delusion. And when you're in this strong delusion, it's not to say that you can't get out. In fact, the Lord wouldn't have anyone stay in delusion forever. Delusion is not somewhere that the Lord throws you. It's not somewhere that is a punishment. Delusion is the place that we end up when we don't know the truth. And if we're lazy, or if we are in a place where we're throwing our cares into the wind because we're not educated through experience enough to realize how important good qualities and moral values, staying clean. If you don't know about germs or you don't know about health, you will take the candy every time until you get so sick and you find out the reason you got sick was because of the candy. Then the next time you might think twice. But experience is something that we will all gain. But when you're just an ignorant soul and you're willing to throw your cares, which is whatever somebody may have given you as knowledge that you don't know by experiment, by gnosis, but you only know by theory, then you will easily be deceived. We need to grow from grace unto grace, and we need to be transformed from glory unto glory, even as was done by the Lord, who descended below all things and is ascending now far above all principalities, powers, and dominions. So the evil people in this world, like Jehovah's Witnesses, are just a bunch of peasants, and they're in this little mind group cult, and they don't know what they're doing. They're not really the smartest ones. They're not free. They're the slaves. And they're taught a few bits and pieces of truth, or at least allusions to truth, that keeps them thinking, oh, okay, this is fine. So this is why we shun our parents and our children and treat each other like idiots and don't listen or learn to the Lord or don't hear spirits or, oh yeah, that's all done away. But above Jehovah's Witnesses and the modern type Mormons and Adventists and other Moonies and Scientologists and all of these umbrella organizations that are controlling the masses, they get perks because they're slaves. They're not elite because they're just slaves. Now, at the top of each of these organizations, there are some of the elite. All of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society presidents were all Bavarians, every last one of them. Henschel and Franz, all of them. Charles Taze Russell was one of the highest bloodlines there is. But the bloodlines, they are another cult, but they're a cult that is a family knit, that they're incarnated from ancient times back into the same family. And they've signed a contract. So their souls are in this darkness because they have pursued it in this age. In this age, it takes ages to move up and to evolve. Well, the tribe of, there are 12 tribes. We did say that there are 2 legitimate wives, whatever that means, of Jacob, and there were 2 supposed concubines. Well, remember, Abraham had 3 wives. And just like David had 700, Solomon had 1,000, these numbers are esoteric. So 1,000 would be all the nations, the wives, the covenants, the marriages that would produce a royal heir for each of these nations. 1,000 is 10 times 10 times 10, which is 10 is a complete spatial. There is nothing in there about time. It was the present fullness, complete. Solomon married into every nation. 1,000, just like the 1,000-year reign. It's 10 by 10 by 10. There's no sevens. See, we pay for our sins 70 times 7. We are released on the Jubilee. There's a 7 in there, a 7 times 10, 70. But in this case, it's just 10 by 10. So it's nothing to do with the future. It has to do with just right now, the present moment. Solomon at that time married into the unifying of all the nations. However, David, who was greater than Solomon, had 700 wives. That actually is more than 1,000, because 1,000 just means now, the present. But David meant 700, 7 times 10, which is all now and for all the ages to come. So when Abraham had 3 wives, it meant he had, this is when it says 3, just like the 3 wise men divides up the entire earth. How do we know, Dave? Because Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and he divided the entire world between them. It's the sea, the land, and the sky. Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. So the 3 wise men represent the 3 jurisdictions of the earth. And Abraham is the father of all, not just, well, you say, well, how could he be the father of all if he was only the father of Isaac and then Jacob had 12 sons and it's just Israel and that's just this one line? What about the other nations? Well, Jacob had a daughter named Dinah who married Shechem. That's the nations. That's the other 70 nations, which again is symbolic, or the 72. And so there's the earthly carnal commandments, the lower kingdom, the lower realm, Malkuth. And then there is the 10, which is all the other nations, the lost ones that are scattered, the heathen, the pagans, the Gentiles, the Greeks. And so, in that sense, you have the higher and the lower. The lower having a wedding with the higher. This is why it's male and female. They're not actually male and female, guys. These are principles. Well, they're actually negative and positive, or male and female, or light and darkness. Yeah, we need darkness. We got to sleep. We need the polarities. And they're going to be forever. But when you're aware of these dualities and you let it rule over you, you're in a world of duality. And no, that's this world. But we're going to another place where we're going to be reigning. So that's the 2 sides that come together in the marriage. However, he's married to 3 women because there are 3 realms, right? There are 3 heavens. And so each of these wives represent a princess, a divine priesthood, sometimes a city, which is a temple, okay, in the old days, where everybody comes to get their spiritual milk from their mother, their learning, their wisdom, and the celebration and the covenant. So Abraham, yes, was married to a free woman. Does she then mean or represent a race of people that are free and good and the rest of them are slaves? No, that's never what it ever meant. It means that there was the heavens, Zeus, and the Poseidon, the sea, and Hades. Now, I guarantee all three of them are very important. The Bible tells you that they wish for you to be prosperous in your body, soul, and spirit. The body is the lowest, the soul is in the middle, and the spirit's the highest, or the air. So the emotions, or the water, or the astral is in the middle, and the lowest is the base, or the most carnal, fleshly nature. So we need to be preserved in spirit, soul, and body. All are important. Remember, there is Moses, Elijah, and Christ. Because Moses is the carnal commandments, the fleshly nature. Elijah went up in a fiery chariot into the astral. And Jesus is the capstone of light. And this makes the whole pyramid. This makes the entire unity, body, soul, and spirit. The body had to be raised up. Jesus raised it up from the dead. So we're not talking about colors. We're not talking about humans being enslaved. Now, maybe in that day for 10, 20, 50 years or a lifetime, people made covenants. Oh, your tribe stole some stuff from our tribe, and now you got to work it off and be our slaves because we're at war. Okay, but that's just incidental. We don't care what happened literally with their little skirmishes. We're talking about the esoteric wisdom. We're talking about the eternal struggle. And there were, and in that sense, the Lord had every nation in mind, because remember, Dinah married Sichem. So here you have all these 12 tribes. All of them received their blessing in Dinah, the woman who marries. And who is she? The woman? Dinah? She married the man of the Melchizedek priesthood, the higher Canaanite priesthood. So it was from Jacob on the male side, who had a female, that married a male on the female side, who was the king. They, and through their union, had a woman named Asenath, who then was married to Joseph, and Joseph is the firstborn son of Rael, or Rachel. So Rachel would be the mother that is favored. And how is it that she is favored? Well, literally, she might have been the favorite wife at that time. That's not important. What we're talking about here is the covenant that Abraham received from El Elyon, the Most High, and the bread and wine. And the wife of his desire, his love, the one he chose, right? And he ended up with Leah and 2 concubines. But he chose this one. He loved this one. This is his favorite. This is the covenant of the Spirit. Rael, Rachel. And that union produced Joseph. And Joseph got the birthright. And the stone that the builders rejected, to him was given the stone. Well, remember, we were talking about that the other day. I forgot to tell you that stone is actually the capstone that the builders rejected, the chief cornerstone. I told you that. And I told you it's on the pyramid, but it's on the Great Pyramid. If you go to the Great Pyramid, you'll see there is no capstone. It was removed centuries ago. It was looted by Alexander the Great. And I don't know what happened to it, but what happened at some point when the capstone of that temple was missing, which is the Ben, very holy, it was busted into several parts. I believe 3. One of them is in England right now. Another one is in Mecca. And I believe the other one is in India. And those 3 stones are 3 divisions, just like Abraham had 3 wives, 3 covenants. There are 3 different groups of people that represent spirit, soul, and body, not actual tribes. Because every one of the tribes, there may have been some tribes that were more soulical, maybe some tribes more earthly, some more spiritual. There's no favorites. The Lord loves them all. They're all going to be restored and transformed into one. There's going to be a marriage. So Hagar and Keturah was Oriental, and Sarah. Now, Sarah was the free woman. Why? Because she's the spiritual, the high, the north. Hagar was the princess of Egypt, meaning the world, this world, right? The physical, conscious world. Sarah represents our mother who's in heaven, right? The angels or whatever. It's not a tribe. So Egypt, the princess there, Hagar, was the wife of Abraham and received the blessing through him. Now, right now, she's not receiving the blessing. She's enslaved with her children. That's the world we live in. It's not some tribe, but it's a parable about the world we live in. Now, my point in going through all of this is to finally tell you this. So there are 12 tribes. You say only Israel is the chosen. And I've said many, many times, that's everybody, because there were 72 souls that came out of the loins of Jacob. That's only a symbol. We don't even know if there's actually 72, but that's what the Bible says, and I believe it. But what I really believe is the meaning, the esoteric meaning that Jacob, through his loins, he gives birth to all the world. But then you ask yourself, how? If there were other nations floating around, and there was Israel at the time, and they were fighting the Philistines, and then how did the Philistines get a blessing? Yes. The Philistines are the other nations. And at that time, you just had this nation of Israel, and then you had the other nations. Well, how do you include them? The Lord's very, very clever. He took Dinah, the daughter. So you've got the sons, 12 of them, and the one woman who's the daughter, who marries the Abimelech, father Molech, or Lamech's line back to Cain, to restore the lower slave woman. And that Canaanite priestess is heir to the entire world as soon as she marries the other side, the male, and they have a union and they become one and they reign together in harmony and in love. Friends, we're not talking about races. We're talking about the harmony of the spirit and the flesh. It is the Egyptian princess that married Abraham that is the reigning princess to whom will be born the seed that will reign over the conscious world. Egypt, the world, this world. And this world will be married to the higher spiritual world. And all three of these realms are within everybody in every tribe. Now, you got to ask yourself, if that's true, and I guarantee it is, then why don't the rabbis tell us this? You got two choices. Either the rabbis don't know, and they're fools, because in all their wisdom and all their grandiose teachings and their Torah and their Talmud and their Mishnah and their all of this stuff that they say, nobody ever figured this out. So either they're stupid, ignorant fools, or they're liars and they're holding this back from you. And they've managed to not allow you to even know the interpretation of those verses. I think at one time they were liars and they did it. I think it was Satan that had it written down that way. I don't think the rabbis have a big IQ. I don't think they're smarter than anyone else. I think they just literally are enslaved to the programming of this world and literally don't know. But when you say Israel, you mean 12 sons and one daughter, who is everybody. Now, also, Judah right now has the special favor of being royal. The royal blood is Judah. But Judah was the son of Leah. So, remember, Ra'el is Ra, El, the Most High. Leah is Yahweh of this world. So, Leah was a wife, like a slave, kind of. She was the other covenant. Judah wasn't even the firstborn of Leah. Here, wait till you hear this. He had several brothers. I think he was the youngest. But he also had a sister. And his sister's name was Dinah. So Judah, remember, is raising up seed. In the book of Ruth, it says that Elimelech, which is El-Melech, just like Abimelech, this is from the Melchizedek Canaanite priestly line. And Elimelech had a wife named Naomi, which is the same as Naamah. It's the same name, but they're just spelling it a little slightly different pronunciation, same word. And this is, again, Naamah, the queen mother, that goes back to the Canaanite line. And they had no child, so Ruth, who was married to their child who died, had to have a Levirate marriage. And Boaz did that, and he was of Judah. So Judah's not the heir. He's not even the firstborn. He's not the oldest. Dinah is the one that gets the promise, actually, not Judah. The woman. And the woman is the one who has relations with the Canaanite line. So the lineage came through Joseph, which is both from Jacob and from Lamech, from Seth's line and Cain's line. They both get the promise together. And it turns out that the woman marries the man from the Cain's line. Noah was a man who married from Cain's line a woman. The next one is a woman who married a man from the Cain's line. And it keeps going back and forth. But when it came down to Joseph, Joseph is the one who receives the promise, who is a combination of the nations and Jacob, and it's all the world. And everybody gets their blessing in Joseph, who will rule over his brethren. Because Joseph received a dream that he saw 12 stars and 11 of them bowing down to his star. He saw the earthly appearances too, even before we get the eternal blessing in heaven. He saw 12 stalks of grain, and 11 of the stalks of grain were bowing to the other stalk of grain, which was himself. And that is the Christ who is going to be the heir. And everybody gets their blessing in Christ, which is the promise of eternal life, because we're all in Christ. We're all the only begotten, and we're heirs with reference to a promise. See, the Christ in you, that's the heir with reference to the promise. All of us have, everybody's going around, oh, I've got the Christ in me, I've got the Christ in me, but it may not even be activated, right? You may not know anything, but it is in there. The important part is that you got the promise that's going to be revealed in us, right? That's what it is. We all got that thing in us to which belongs the promise. So all of us are going to get the result, the glory, eventually. So Hagar, who was enslaved with her children, a slave woman, is only characterized as a slave because the body is being enslaved by the demons. And it's just a symbol of this world. Egypt was the priestly line. That woman was the priestly line that will bring forth the Messiah. That's the Melchizedek priesthood from Canaan, from Cain. Yeah, she was the Egyptian royal Canaanite blood. And if you don't believe that, understand that before Abraham, when he went to Bethel, when he went down there at the trees of Mamre, he met Father Molech, Abimelech, the high priest Melchizedek, the high priest of the Canaanite dynasty, Abimelech. Melech or Abimelech or Lamech is the father of Naamah. Now, Naamah is a woman, the last of the seed of Cain, but the last male was Lamech. And so Lamech is a deity, one before the flood. So he was in another realm as he's a deity, not a demi-deity. And he was the king, and that priesthood, which is the Canaanite priesthood that went through the female line that Tamar was of, that Rahab the harlot from Jericho, who married Joshua, was of, that Naamah of Lamech was up. All of these Canaanite priestesses, and Asenath, who was the daughter of Dinah. Remember, as we said, the 12 sons of Israel were 12 tribes. But they had a sister, Dinah, who married Shechem, which married the Israelites from Jacob together with the Canaanites. The Canaanites had the royal bloodline back to Cain, and that was the woman high priestess. And the male line was the one who had the authority only in material world. Spiritually, they had to get their authority through the female line. So they would weld the southern and the northern kingdoms together by the wedding, the great wedding. And it really just represented the flesh and the spirit becoming one. And when the more material, carnal body is wed and becomes one with the spiritual self, then it is one, and the world is reigning and is peace and is happiness, and all the children are happy, and the children of the nations. So that's the way it was from the beginning. And the reason why we had such a system was because, remember, the earth has been here for billions of years, or there's been human beings at our conscious level, somewhere near human conscious level, for millions of years. But only in the last few thousand years have men been evolved enough to, some of them who were the earlier firstborn, or other young children still being incarnated, but some of the earlier, or the firstborns, were awakening for some period of time. And now we're like at the harvest, or the end of the age. And of course, remember, the Bible says worlds within worlds, or worlds without end, which should be translated ages of the ages. They're without end. There's ages of ages. And just like the book of Revelation says, the dragon will come up out of the bottomless pit at the end of the 1,000 years and deceive the world all over again, because there are cycles. So in this cycle, there is a harvest, or an end, or a conclusion to this age, and that's what we're about to go through. But of course, this has been going on for endless infinity. But there's going to be a few that are older in this age, the firstborn of this age. They've gone through their lessons, and like fathers with children, they're going to be interested in helping the world go higher. But they're not one to be interested in power or sex or money or any. They're not addicted. And many of them, in the last 1,000, 2,000 years or whatever, they ever attained unto any of that. Like Paul says, I hope that I attain unto the earlier resurrection. Not that I have attained, but he says, I go on to the prize, to run the race. But the other side, the dark side, it's not like it's another powerful entity they're fighting. The only fight is good against evil, male against female. And it's only this duality is only in this world. Because in the next world, we're one, and there is no battle. The battle that's being formed here now is the ignorance and the truth. The truth cannot lose. The truth is always going to be the truth. And the ignorant lose every day by virtue of their ignorance. But they don't always stay ignorant. They grow, they experience, they move on. So what I said I said there are these 12 different tribes. You can't judge all these tribes by virtue of what the law says they were. Remember, Yahweh hated the worship of Bethel. He didn't want them worshiping the Queen of Heaven. That's what the Canaanites were doing. He said, exterminate them, massacre them, kill them all. Yeah, they wanted to kill Jesus and Mary Magdala, the high priest of the tower. Oh, they wanted to kill her. They wanted to stone her because she blasphemed their deity and disobeyed their law. And that's why Jesus said, it says in your law, but I say. It says in your law, but I say. And your deity said, but I say. Moses brought the law, but I bring the truth. So this is what's going on. Jesus came from a land called the Galilee. And the Galilee is a circuit. is the outer wheel, the outer, not the spokes coming from the center, but the outer rim is the circuit around the hub, which is Heliopolis. Heliocentric, or everything around the sun revolves. The sun is the center, and everything is moving around that. And out the outer limits is all of the nations. They come into the center, into that holy place of peace, to see the mother. In the queen bee, the Melissae, in the Essene priesthood, which is a priesthood that was all over the world, and they all went into the highest temple, into the sanctuary. If you don't believe me, go into the Judean temple. In the Torah, it tells you that beyond the curtain, in the innermost sanctuary, in the holiest of holies, there is a blinding glory. And it was the Shekinah, and that is a feminine gender. So beyond the veil, when you get married, the woman's got a veil. And you want to see that glory, you got to lift the veil. Does the man lift the veil? Yes, he lifts it, and then what's he do? Well, he gets to go in, and oh, buddy, it is great. He has an orgasm, and he becomes one with his spiritual self. And that's what we need to do. And so in the Judean temple, they have the truth there in their mysteries. But the outer letter of it teaches war and famine and hate and genocide. Because there is the truth there. They're not allowed to teach anything but the truth. And so this is where I'm getting to. They have to have you make an agreement. So as Jehovah's Witnesses, we make an agreement before we get baptized. And then they have the right to murder you because you agreed to it. I was 18. And yes, I feel like I was made to sign it or make the agreement under duress. They had already murdered my mother and father. And I'm like, oh, well, just wait upon the Lord. The Lord will straighten it out. They still had me brainwashed. Even though my inner standing, my mind knew the truth, and I knew they were wrong, but I was only 18, and I didn't even have a family. I had nowhere to go. And they were offering me a job, and I had to really think about what was going on and do a lot of praying. And yeah, at that time in my life and throughout my life, I did a lot of praying. And I knew immediately, once I was baptized, that the Lord says, you need to find the truth. You need to walk away. And so I knew in my heart, before they even disfellowshipped me, that they were wrong. And I was beginning to awaken. But I signed the deal. And therefore, they had the right to murder me, which was a spiritual murder. Because, well, they can physically murder people, but only if you agree to it. This is what we were going to say. Nothing that ever happens to you can happen unless you agree. It's a huge delusion we're living in. We don't realize that we're agreeing to everything. Jehovah's Witnesses sign it before they join. Mormons make covenants. All the little grunts of the 33 degrees, the 30 degrees out of the 33 or whatever, the initiates, the apprentices, they don't know what they're doing. They're pleasing their masters, hoping to get a few crumbs off the table. They're deceived the entire time into thinking this must be the truth, because they can't hear the truth that's inside them telling no, saying no, no, no. Within them is the knowledge of all things, the Lord of spirits, our divine mother. And even the snake whispers in our ear and says, you must know, you must have knowledge to become like the divine being, to get your crown, to get your white robe. And so we hear it, we know it, I knew it. From the day you're born, you know the truth. You always know the truth. But until you experience it, and it becomes conscious knowledge, you lie to yourself. You hear only the conscious mind. You don't listen to your intuition, to your spiritual truth. Now, every day, I hear only my spiritual voice. I don't listen to the flesh. except for it needs to eat and it needs to bathe and it needs to exercise and all the things that my body needs. I listen to it, but I'm in control. But the revelations that I receive now is because I'm in tune with that inner voice. Jehovah's Witnesses are not. Modern Mormons are not. They're taught to miss the voice of the Spirit and follow the voice of their training, which is a delusion. And they're all ignorant. And I guarantee that the elite group, they start off on a different base. They're taught when they're born, okay, we're the elite. They're taught the truth about that. They know that they're of a different pedigree. They know that they have a covenant with something that they call the divine being. They believe in their conscious mind it's deity. Even though they know that that deity is a lie. They know they don't actually know for themselves. They know they're obeying orders, and they know the orders that they're getting isn't right. Their conscience bothers them. You've ever heard that conscience? What that means is your inner knowing. They even admit they have a conscience, but they won't tell you what it means. They got a big word for it. That's your conscience, son. And they tell you your conscience is telling you to be a Jehovah's Witness and do what you're told. Actually, that's not your conscience telling you that. That's their outer control. That's their illusion. That's their Torah of instruction. That's the lies. That's the letter. That's not your own knowing. So, this group, the elite that run the world, they come in. Now, when they're little babies, they're still waking up. They don't even remember their past life or something. And they're just like, oh, okay, what kind of a family am I in here? Oh, there's daddy. Oh, he's the president. Or he's the senator. Or he's the movie star. Oh, we're special. And then they teach them, yeah. From the day that they're born, they take them to these conventions, just like I did. Because Jehovah's Witnesses in these groups are higher up. So they kind of imitate a lot of it. And they have these little societies and they just do what they're told. Everything's great. Their conscience never bothers them until something bad happens. They have to shun their children or something. But the elite are like that. At first, the children aren't privy to the sacrificing babies. And you know, they're 10 years old. They're taught by tutors. They go to the Orthodox school. They don't go to the regular schools. They attend the conventions and they got the little grammar spiritual lessons that they give the kids while the grown-ups go and have orgies. As they get older, they get initiated. They're like told, do you know that our deity is Yahweh and and we're his special children. We've signed a contract. We're the chosen. And all these peasants, they're just animals. They don't know. They're peasants. They can never know. They're not advanced like us. Okay? And there's nothing we could do. These poor people. Oh, let's just give them a little thingy in the arm and put them to sleep because, you know, put them out of their misery. They're look at them. Oh, they're peeing on the ground. Oh, my goodness. Oh, the vulgarity. Look at them. They're not dressed like us. They're dirty little filthy pigs. And they're watching porn and violence and they're hitting and on drugs. And, well, yeah, because in their mind, the pharmaceutical drugs that's their scientists that are, they've learned how to manipulate genes and they're gods and we just follow them and it's the elixir of life that we're drinking. Like, they don't do the actual vodka, and Coke. They're not doing pot. These guys are on some kind of chemical manipulations and they drink blood and goodness knows what they do. And I don't want to know. And you'll never know. Any of their people ever speak the truth, they're immediately murdered. They sign an agreement. And this is what I'm telling you. The elite can murder you if you sign the agreement, if you make the vow. Here's the thing. Jesus has already come and he broke that covenant. It's no longer in force unless you choose to apostatize, unless you choose to not follow after and receive the love of the truth that you might be saved from, or delivered from the wrath to come. But if you choose the devil, and remember, when you make a choice, it may not be forever, because there is no word forever in the Bible. There's ages of ages and this and that and the other thing. And there's places where Paul says, hand such a one under the devil for the destruction of the flesh, that his spirit might be saved in the day of the Lord. Because they know that eventually the destruction of the flesh is going to happen for everyone. And that's why it says that the gospel, or that Jesus died for, especially to those that believe, but for the whole world, he died. Yeah, Jesus died for the whole world. Everyone will be saved, but each in his own rank. You know, Christ, the first fruits, and afterwards, those that are during his presence. And then when he hands over the kingdom to his God and Father, so that everything will be restored back to its natural order. And the deity will be all in all. And all the children will be subject to the Father and the Divine Mother. Is that something that's going to happen actually, like a wheel that has an end and it's done and it's finished? There's a beginning and then there's an end? No, that would be mortality. We're talking about infinite. Infinite has no end or beginning. They simply live in a place of bliss, a place of paradisical glory. As far as that kingdom is concerned, it's really an ideal. We're moving towards it, but we'll never achieve it, because the Lord deity dwells in unapproachable light, meaning the light is so bright, the knowledge is so high, that it is an infinite knowledge, and you will always be forever, eternally progressing toward it. So it is a symbolic expression, but some get knocked off along the path and they have to do the class over, or they throw their cares into the wind, they sow their oats, as my aunt used to say, and they reap the consequences of what they've done. And when they reap the consequences, they learn from the consequences. They have karma, and karma's not there just because karma doesn't like you. Karma's there to adjust you. The Bible says the Lord loves those whom he disciplines. And so we're being disciplined. Discipline is for the purpose of correction. You ever heard of correctional facilities? Well, they don't exist on this earth, but they exist in the Lord's world. This is a correctional facility, friends. And the guard is just another grunt. And the only reason you're in this correctional facility is because you choose. Well, guys, I've rambled on for another almost hour, and I'm not able to put that much in one clip. I'm going to load this, and I'll do the other half of this tomorrow. Anywho, I will bid you adieu and hope and pray that you have a wonderful evening. May the Lord bless you and keep you and prosper your soul, body, and spirit. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.